Kinji remains to be an absolute scumlord, but I like how similar to like a cast dynamic similar to that of maybe even say Konosuba's, the fact that even though he's a scum, I do like there is genuine development, especially between a new character like Shia and himself, where even though he still does strap her to a pole and uses her as bait to lure a monster out of a cave, he still is giving genuine advice that he firmly believes in and is saying, if you're gonna be basically my prisoner, and you're gonna do what I say and we're gonna overtake a bunch of shit, at the very least, live your own life, don't follow in your father's footsteps or shadow, things like that. It's quite impressive that this show has managed to be as good as it is, mainly because you really don't know where any episode will go, where the narrative will go. Because, I mean, look at the end of last week's episode, she's all tied up, where are we gonna go, we're gonna attack the surface, what's gonna happen? And he kicked the episode off with him being shook down, beaten up by a mob, saying you need to pay back your 5 million debt within a month, and you're thinking, at least I know I was, well shit, he ain't gonna do that, so maybe he'll use Rim, Shia, the others, maybe they'll just launch an attack, maybe that's how he'll push back, he's pretty down the dumps. Nope, they easily solved that, because that wasn't going to be the main issue of this episode, because he's gonna run a petting zoo. Look how peaceful it is, recruit all the monsters, rather than killing them and doing this and that, no. Yeah, but they can also regenerate a lot of different things, including Best Boy Wanabe's tail, and he easily paid off his debt by just cutting off regenerative parts, so that's how he would use his petting zoo. You don't really know where the show wants to go, and I like how there's a bit of humbleness to the relationship between Shia and Kinji, because I really thought, and I'm probably not alone, when he was talking about the teleportation crystal, it sounded like it was a very valuable thing. I was like, oh, he wants that, he's gonna sell it, and he's gonna have mad money. What I thought he was gonna do was he was going to manipulate her into saying, oh, you know, because he probably knew only one person could be teleported, so that it would be this situation where he was gonna sacrifice himself, she gave him the crystal, and he just kind of ran and hid, and then Rim came in and destroyed the monster before it was anything, and he could say he teleported while still selling it. I thought that was what they're building up to. So when he tossed it to the monster and threw it to the surface, where the big woman in charge seemingly, who's preparing for something called a death march, where you are like, okay, shit's about to hit the fan, screw the workers, and you send Majin or whatever they're called to the surface to rain havoc. This man has no chill. And you really, at least, I mean, if you're able to predict this accurately, I commend you, and I say go write your own isekai, because you probably have mad ideas. I don't see this shit coming. Last week, I talked about where I thought it might go, and right now, still, like, I mean, I didn't expect someone like Shia to easily work with him, given the circumstance, but when you really put into perspective that this is someone who's so, like, engrossed in her work, it kind of makes sense that she just immediately adjusted to the new lifestyle following under Kinji. And it's really interesting because there's a genuine relationship brewing, and you knew there was going to be like a potential romance there, even if it was going to be completely one-sided, like Shia really loved him. He's like, oh, you're hot, but I'm not really all that interested in you. You know, you've seen that type of relationship before. But it generally feels like he's the type of character who has no problem cutting off the tail of your ally here, saying, oh, it regenerates immediately. It still hurts like shit. I mean, losing your body part isn't something you want to do. So he has no problem hurting Wanabe for money, but he also doesn't want Wanabe to die. So he's that scumbag who, when push comes to shove, will have his friend's best interest. But if there's a buck to be made, he has no problem strapping you to a pole, using you as bait, cutting your body parts off if they can come back. Hell, I'm convinced if he learned that Shia's arm was worth 1 million gold, even though she can't regenerate it, hey, we'll just attach a little prosthetic limb there, you'll be fine. That's the type of character he is. So it's interesting because it definitely has a kind of like Konosuba charm with the kind of like assholes being assholes to each other, just instead of like the whole group being assholes, it's really just Kinji currently. And it's kind of amazing. I just love it. I love the references, like the video game mechanics where when he was like basically setting up his petting zoo, or what was supposed to be, like they pretty much have like an RPG screen in terms of like how they're gonna deal with it, but just so good. And easily is without a doubt my favorite show I watch on Fridays. It's the show that I always look forward to the most. It does the worst in terms of views out of the 3 shows I cover, but it's the show I enjoy watching the most. And I really recommend anyone who talks with anyone about anime to really recommend this one, because I truly think Dungeon of Black Company is one of this season's best shows. I would definitely put it up there in, I'm not sure exactly, because out of all the shows I'm covering, I like everyone, obviously, but it feels like it's creeping up into like a top 5 for me of this season. And I know that's saying a hell of a lot, but that's how much I'm really enjoying it just on an entertainment level alone. And I like the idea that they are kind of like expanding the world, talking about like the death marches and like the idea of why they're okay with sacrificing their workers, because basically to them it's kind of is the end of the world that they don't get the right mining materials in order to push back a threat. As you have someone who's basically trying to topple over that, and you can't really tell who's going to be worse for the workers, and like pretty much everyone agrees, who's ever in charge is probably going to get screwed over. And I really enjoy how it feels like the number of characters on screen so far feel like they all have an equal in their own right. I loved Wanabe from the beginning, kind of being like almost a moral compass, voice of reason, who's just like, oh my god, just kind of getting dragged along. Shia has really surprised me with her badassness, but kind of soft spot, and just how she really got screwed around in her past, and now maybe because of Kinji, probably gonna have daddy issues, but still, you know, is able to start living her own life while being a boss and maybe understanding what it is to take it a little more easy to then just the, you know, Ant Queen, things like that. Rim being a total badass. I mean, seriously, they were struggling to defeat this thing from pouring concrete on it, dropping rocks on it, slashing it, and then she comes in with her hair alone and bites its head off. Though it's interesting because apparently that wasn't even a complete form, given the fact that she left the cave, which is something that I'm curious to see what that will do for the future, because if that's something that could happen for just this one creature, what about the rest of the creatures in this cave now that she has left? Is that going to cause more issues? It's really hard to say. I just think the humor for now being, I think this was episode 4, it's insane, because this is a very consistent isekai. You end with a cliffhanger of seemingly the exact same animation, the exact same feeling of when the show started off. Him in his apartment, portal comes down, he's moved to a new world. Is that about to happen again? Are we about to meet the person responsible? There's a lot of potential here. Or maybe they'll just end up in the boss's room, right? The one saying, hey, were you guys responsible for this? Seems like you guys are always the one responsible when shit goes wild. As she did make a mention in this episode of fact that there's some weird shit going on in the cave from a couple of their workers. So you never really know, right? Because I doubt this is the last we've seen of the world, but then again, this is Dungeon of Black Company. Screwing over Kinji could be the nature of the business, but it's hard to say. But like, this is such a consistent show. Hilarious, every character is great, and they've done a great job at making Kinji a despicable bastard while having some heart and humility when it counts. And I think this was probably the episode that gave him the best moment, where he really did help Shia in her moment of need, while then immediately reminding us why we consider him a scumbag and we wouldn't have it any other way. I am always excited for more, and I'm interested because I'd love to say, oh, I know exactly where next week's gonna go. I thought maybe I had an idea where this episode would go, and they kicked us off with him needing to pay back a loan and immediately doing so who the hell knows? As far as I know, he'll go back to his original world with a bunch of monsters, and that'd be amazing. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below. What do you hope to see with next week's episode? If you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.